Everything up to this point was selection. This lesson is different. Now the question is not what to use. It is how to design it. You are moving from decisions to a system. Now connect that to what is shown. 8 steps. Data, diagnosis, method, design, placement, execution planning, execution, evaluation. This is not a list. It is a dependency chain. Each step defines the next. Break one step. The system breaks. Now read the statement on the slide. This is not optional. That is not emphasis. That is a rule. Skipping any step leads to failure. Not sometimes. Every time. Now the line at the bottom explains why. Failures are not caused by the method. They come from wrong diagnosis, wrong sequence, or weak planning. So the outcome is already decided before the job starts. Now frame this lesson correctly. This is not teaching new methods. It is controlling everything you already know into a structured workflow. From data to execution. Most treatments fail before they start. Not because of the method. Because of how the decisions are made. Now isolate the first part. The problem is not technical difficulty. It is fragmented decisions. One parameter at a time. One action at a time. Without structure. Now look at the failure pattern. 3 causes. Wrong diagnosis. That immediately destroys the entire workflow. If the problem is misidentified, every step that follows becomes invalid. Now second. Poor sequencing. Even correct methods fail if applied in the wrong order. You already saw this in hybrid treatments. Sequence defines effectiveness. Now third. Weak execution planning. Even a correct design fails at the well site if it is not executable. Now step back. These 3 are not separate. They cascade. One mistake propagates through the entire system. Now move to the second part of the slide. The objective. What must the workflow achieve? First, maximize productivity. Not just apply a treatment, but identify the one that delivers the highest impact. Second, control risk. Every step must anticipate failure modes, not react to them. Now third, ensure correct placement and execution. It is not enough to design. You must control where the treatment goes and how it is delivered. Now connect both sides. Failures come from unstructured decisions. The objective is structured design. So read this slide correctly. This is not describing problems. It is justifying the need. For the workflow system you saw in slide 1. This is the system. Everything you saw in slide 2 is solved here. 8 steps. But do not read them as a list. Read them as a chain. Start with the first 3. Data, diagnosis, method. This defines the problem and the solution. If one of these is wrong, everything that follows is wrong. Now move to the next 2. Design and placement. This is where the method becomes real. Parameters are defined, and the treatment is directed to the correct zone. Without placement, design does not matter. Now the last 3. Execution planning, execution, evaluation. This is where design meets reality. If execution is not controlled, design is irrelevant. If evaluation is skipped, nothing improves. Now step back. 8 steps, but only one direction. They cannot be rearranged. They cannot be skipped. Each step consumes the output of the previous one. Now read the rule on the slide. Bad data leads to wrong diagnosis. Wrong diagnosis leads to failed treatment. This is not theory. It is cause and effect. So read this slide correctly. This is not a workflow to follow. It is the structure that prevents failure. Everything starts here. Not at method selection. Not at design. At data. Because every decision that follows depends on this step. Now separate the 2 parts of the slide. Data collection first. 2 types only. Reservoir data. Well data. Reservoir data defines the system. Permeability, mineralogy, porosity. These determine what is physically possible. Now well data. Pressure. Production history. Completion details. These show how the system is actually behaving. Now connect them. Reservoir data tells you what should happen. Well data shows what is happening. The difference between them defines the problem. Now move to the second part. Diagnosis. This is where most engineers fail, because they try to describe everything, instead of identifying one dominant limitation. Now look at the three categories: damage, permeability limitation, or combined flow restriction. These are not options. Only one can dominate the system. Now the rule on the slide. No diagnosis means no design, because without a clear cause, method selection becomes guessing. Now step back. If data is wrong, diagnosis is wrong. If diagnosis is wrong, every step that follows is wrong. Nothing downstream can fix it. Now read this slide correctly. This is not the first step. This is the step that decides everything else. Up to this point, you identified the problem. Now you commit to a solution. Start with method selection. There are only 4 options: cleanout, acidizing, fracturing, hybrid. Not more than that. Now understand how selection works. It is not choice. It is match. Permeability, skin, reservoir type. These 3 already define the method. If they do not agree, you are making the wrong decision. Now move to the next part. Design. This is where most people underestimate the process. Because selecting the method is not the solution. It only defines the direction. Now look at the 2 sides. Acidizing design, fracturing design. Each one translates the method into parameters: fluid type, volume, rate, additives, or in fracturing, fluid system, propagate, injection schedule, geometry. These are not details. They are the treatment. Now connect both parts. Method answers what to apply. Design answers how it behaves. If method is correct, but design is weak, the treatment still fails. Now read the rule on the slide. Design is physics, not approximation. Every parameter must reflect the formation, not habit. So read this slide correctly. Selection is only step 3. Real engineering starts at design. Up to slide 5. The treatment exists only on paper. This slide determines whether it works in reality. Start with placement. This is where most treatments fail. Not at design. At delivery. Now look at the options: bullheading, coiled tubing, diversion, isolation. These are not operational choices. They determine where the treatment goes. Without control, fluid follows the easiest path, not the target zone. So the wrong interval gets treated, and the right one gets nothing. Now move to execution planning. This step tests if the design is even possible. Equipment, pressure limits, safety, rate capacity. If these do not match the design, the treatment cannot be delivered as intended. So failure is already built in. Now execution. 3 actions only. Apply the design. Monitor the response. Adjust if needed. If you do not monitor, you are blind. If you do not adjust, you ignore the formation behavior. Now the last part. Evaluation, production, pressure, skin. These confirm whether the design worked. Without this step, you cannot identify success or failure, and you cannot improve. Now step back. Design defines the treatment. Placement delivers it. Execution applies it. Evaluation validates it. Remove any one of these. The system breaks. So read this slide correctly. A correct design that does not reach the zone is equal to no treatment. This is execution of the full system. Same workflow, now applied to a real case. Start with the condition: sandstone, moderate permeability, declining production. Now the diagnosis: near wellbore damage. Confirmed. So the method is already fixed. Matrix acidizing. No ambiguity here. Now move to design. Acid system selected for that damage type. Additives aligned with mineralogy. This is not generic design. It is matched design. Now placement. Coiled tubing with diversion. Why? Because the formation is not uniform. Without this, the treatment goes to the wrong zone. Now execution. Controlled pumping. Real-time monitoring. This confirms the treatment is working while it is being applied. Now evaluation. Flow rate increases. Skin drops. That confirms success. Now stop. Same workflow. Now look at failure. 3 points only. Wrong diagnosis. Correct method applied to the wrong problem. Result is 0. Now second. Wrong placement. Treatment does not reach the target. The formation remains unchanged. Now third. Wrong design. Incorrect fluid or rate. Instead of improvement. New damage is created. Now connect both. Success follows the workflow. Failure breaks it at one step. So read this slide correctly. Method is not the problem. Failure comes from breaking the workflow. Everything reduces to one structure. 8 steps. 1 dependency chain. Break one step. The system fails. Now the controlling rule. Diagnosis determines everything. Every decision after that comes from it. Now the second rule. Method selection is only one step. Design, placement, and execution decide the result. Now third. Placement defines effectiveness. If the treatment does not reach the zone, nothing happens. Now fourth. Execution must match design. Otherwise the design is irrelevant. Now last. Evaluation closes the system. Without it, you repeat mistakes. Now step back. This is not a workflow to follow. This is a system to prevent failure. From this point forward, every treatment must pass through it. This is the complete framework. All steps are now visible together. From data to evaluation. Nothing is missing. Nothing is independent. Now focus on the structure. Each step feeds the next. Each decision depends on the previous one. That is the system. Now the key rule on this slide. No diagnosis. No design. And no design. No result. This is the control point. Now the failure pattern. Wrong diagnosis. Poor sequencing. Weak execution planning. Not method. Now step back. This slide is not for learning. It is for reference. A quick check before any treatment. Now move forward. Module 5 continues from here. The next lessons will not introduce new steps. They will go deeper into design. How each step is actually executed. In the field.